Good afternoon and welcome to today's educational webinar on you've established your self-directed account, now what? My name is Jason DeBono. I'm the Vice President of NewView Trust Company. I've been doing this for 14 years and this continues to be the best part about my job is I get to get on and talk to people and educate people on what they can do inside a self-directed account and how they work. And so today, we're going to talk a little bit about what are the steps? What does it really mean? You know, we talk a lot about self-direction says you can do this and that, and these are all these exciting things, but what's the real brass tacks of it? If I fill out the application paperwork to set up my account, what do I do next? And so this content is really designed to help you determine what the next steps are. And some of this stuff you may be familiar with, some of this stuff may be new to you, but class is not around individualized investments. It's all around process and procedure to get the most out of your account and understand how and the best ways to interact with NewView through this process. So for those of you that are online, you can type questions in. The TV behind me does have the screen, so I apologize if I do look back at that. But I do have the information. It will pop up if you do ask a question. It will show up. There are two ways to do it. One is under the Q&A and the other is under the chat. Either option will alert me, but I will pause and get those read out loud as those come in today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So the first piece, the first step here is to talk about, sorry guys. You know, you've taken the first step. Now, I don't know where everybody that's participating today is in this journey, but we're going to make a couple of assumptions. We're going to make an assumption that you either are in the process of or have set up your self-directed account. The process for that is filling out the account application paperwork. You can do that in person. You can do that, electronically. You can do that all digitally right on our website. But once that account's set up, right, you've now taken the first step closer to financial independence, retirement independence, the ability to put yourself in a position to take control of your own retirement choices. But now, what do I do? So the first thing that we want to make sure that you're aware of is you got to fund your account. Right? So it's kind of like going to Bank of America. You can't go to Bank of America and set up an account, right, without putting some money into it. It doesn't do you much good. Now, we're going to talk through all of these in more detail about how to fund your account, the different ways, some eligibility requirements that certain types may have. So we're going to cover all of that. The second item here is identify your investment. Now, this is the hardest part in the self-directed process because it's 100% your responsibility. So when you become a client of NewView, you accept and you embrace the fact that you're not going to rely on NewView to figure out what to invest into. You're going to get to go make those investments on your own. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. The third step is to request a purchase through NewView. So just like your IRA today that may be sitting at a brokerage firm, when you want to buy stock or a bond or mutual fund, you need to go through Schwab and notify them that you want to buy this investment so that they can buy it on behalf of your IRA account. And it's no different at NewView. But what we are going to talk through today are the nuances and the differences from an electronic clicking a button buying a stock to buying a piece of real estate or a precious metal or issuing a private loan or investing into a private company, right? It's not a digital process. We're working as hard as we can with technology to get as close to that, but there will never be a day where we buy investments in the self-directed world like we do in the stock world, because stocks all buy under an electronic premise. They're all bought the same way. In the self-directed world, no two clients' investments look alike. And so there's no way to digitize everything. But again, we're working tirelessly to get as close to that as we can. And then the last piece, which is really kind of throughout the life of your account here at NewView, is to both maintain the assets and the account. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I think there's some stuff that you can actually take out of here as good practice, even if you have an IRA at a brokerage firm, that's still good practice in terms of maintaining the account. And so our goal is to get you as prepared and ready to be out there and self-directing your account. So the first part of this process is funding your account. And this is really the most critical. Now, a lot of times people fund their account as part of the application process, but I like to cover this as a standalone because what you may find is while you funded it when you open your account, you may have an investment down the road and you may need to have to start this process over. So funding the account really comes in three different approaches, right? So at a top level, there are three ways to get money into your IRA account. Option number one is a cash contribution. Option number two is transferring money from an existing IRA. And option number three is rolling over funds from an old 401k or other qualified retirement plan. And we'll talk a little bit about each of those. Cash contributions can come in the form of check, wire, ACH. That's all pretty straightforward. Understand that there are annual contribution limits, right? So you can only contribute what you're statutorily allowed to. The second thing to be mindful of is you can contribute in arrears. So typically you have up till the tax filing deadline of the following year to contribute for the previous year, which is a real nice treat. Now, we are outside that window for most IRAs to be able to contribute for 2018 still, but something to always be mindful of. We encourage clients to maximize their contribution opportunities every year, and we recognize that that's not always an easy thing to do, but once you break past the point of contributing for a year, you've lost that opportunity to go put money in as a contribution. So those are real valuable opportunities. Please don't let them go by if you can afford to. Set your budget that's going to allow you to drop money into that account on an annual basis. The second way, and really the most common way that we see people funding their account, is through a transfer. Now, a transfer and a rollover are used interchangeably, right, in the finance world, but they're actually two completely different things. So for now, we're going to focus just on that actual account transfer. So the first thing is, and you'll see in parentheses on the slide deck, that transfer process takes about 5 to 10 days. Now, we say that not because that's our defined amount of time, it's just the average. It can happen in a day or two. We've seen it take 2 and 3 weeks. The way a transfer process works is pretty straightforward. NewView, as your new custodian, is required to go request those funds on your behalf. So as part of our application process, and whether you do it then or whether you do it after, you will complete a transfer form. That transfer form authorizes NewView to go to the company that's holding your account today and request that be transferred over to NewView. Now, you can transfer all or part. There's no requirement for that. Some things that we see that speed up the process, a big one is liquidating the securities that you own to create enough cash that you plan to transfer. So if you want to transfer $50,000 from your IRA at Charles Schwab to NewView, if we make the request to Schwab for $50,000 and it's all invested in stock-sponsored mutual funds, they're likely going to reject the transfer or slow the process down. If you know you're going to be making that request, it's best to go in and identify what you want to liquidate to get the $50,000 of cash. Have that ready so when Schwab receives the paperwork, they see that there's already $50,000 of cash and they process that transfer pretty quickly in scenarios like that. Couple of things when it comes to transfers. We don't set the rules of what your current custodian is going to require. So NewView can request a transfer with our form as far as we're concerned. However, the transferring custodian may require two key things. They may require a wet signature. That means that your transfer form will need to be signed with wet ink, mailed to NewView or dropped off, and then we in turn have to mail it to Charles Schwab or whomever that custodian is. That obviously can slow the process down. Thankfully, we're seeing a lot of the transferring custodians are not requiring that wet signature anymore, but it may be possible. The second item is a medallion signature guarantee. This is not a NewView requirement. This would be based on the transferring custodian. We have a medallion guarantee stamp here in our office, so if you are local to us, you can come in and we'll happily stamp that form for you. But think of a medallion guarantee like a financial equivalent of a notary. You typically can get it at a bank or trust company. It's the most common place. A lot of our clients will take the form to their traditional bank. So if you bank with Bank of America, they'll take the transfer form. They'll go in there, sign it in their presence, they'll stamp it, and then we'll send it off to the transferring custodian. Again, understand that is not our requirement. We would love it if those requirements did not exist. It does create more steps in the process, but that's something that we like to get out in front of. So we encourage you to talk with the company that you're transferring from to identify if they have any unique requirements for your transfers. Rolling over funds from an old 401k. Now, we use 401k because it's kind of the catch-all, but understand it's really any qualified plan. This would include 403bs, 457s, thrift savings plans, any sort of employer-sponsored retirement program. When we say old 401k, the reason that's significant is because if you are still an active participant at that employee, so if I work for AT&T and I'm covered under their 401k plan, I am likely not eligible to move the money out of my 401k into an IRA, whether it be at NewView or any other institution, while I'm an active employee. So that's something that you're going to want to confirm. Once I'm no longer an active employee, if I've changed jobs, I've resigned, quit, got fired, but I'm not an active employee, that money is 100% mine from an eligibility standpoint to roll over to an IRA. So just know that if you're planning on funding your account with money that resides in a 401k type or based plan, if it's an old employer, no questions asked. If it's a current employer, then you're going to want to talk to them about what we refer to as an in-service withdrawal. And really the only time we ever see those is if you're over the plan's retirement age. But you'd have to talk to them. That has to do with their plan. We can accept it if they can relinquish it. The other thing that's really important about 401k rollovers is that you as the account holder must make the request. So in the IRA transfer world, NewView on your behalf can go handle the heavy lifting with the current custodian. In the 401k world, you as the plan participant or former plan participant of that company have to go through their process. So we see this a lot. People set up an account and they'll call us and ask if the money's here. And we'll notify them that it's a rollover. We can't request that. And so our welcome calls, our welcome emails, our sales communication, our operations communication, we all spell that out. But we want to make sure that clients fully understand the rollover process is a account holder requirement, not a NewView requirement. Remember, if you do have questions, feel free to type those in and those will get populated up here on my screen. This is the part that everybody wants to talk about, and it is the most exciting part, but you can't really do much with the account if you haven't funded it. So now that we've gotten an understanding of how we get money into the account, let's talk about identifying our investment. Right? This is the fun part of self-direction. So the first part is understanding your objectives. Now, there are two types of clients that come to NewView. There are clients that come here with an investment in mind. So a client will come to us and say, I want to go buy 123 Main Street in my IRA. How do I accomplish that? So from this standpoint, this may not be as important to you, right? But a lot of our clients come to NewView and say, I'm tired of the market. I know real estate, or I know the precious metals world. I know private lending. I know private companies. I want to be in that investment arena. I just don't know exactly what I'm ready to buy yet. So this is where we encourage clients to really stop and ask yourself a couple of questions. Number one, passive versus active. Do you want to own assets that do require active oversight, or do you want to invest in something that's passive? So for example, a private loan. If I write a loan to someone, that's kind of referred to as mailbox money. It's very passive. They're going to, obviously assuming they pay on time, there's nothing I do but simply log into my account and make sure that the money's been paid. In turn, if I were to buy a piece of real estate, generally that becomes a more active investment. Now, I may have a property manager that steps in to keep it passive, but it's still an active investment. There's things that can go wrong. The roof can blow off, right? There are things that, that I need to be aware of, rents, etc., tenant issues. So all of those are great. One of those is not better than the other, but you have to understand where you want to be, whether you want to be on the passive or active side. The second thing is cash flow or appreciation or both. These are really important questions to ask yourself. Are you invested? So in that same example, a loan, right, is a cash flow based investment. It is, depending on the terms of the loan, likely going to spit off cash on a regular basis. Now, if I'm at a point where I want to start withdrawing out of my IRA, that cash flow based investing makes tremendous sense because that check comes in each month and I can take that out of my IRA on a monthly basis. That real estate, right, from a standpoint, assuming it's not rented, is an appreciation play. That means that I'm buying it, holding it, and I'll realize value when I sell it. So that for some people works great. right? They don't need the cash flow today. It's their IRA. They're not old enough to withdraw anyway. So they'd rather invest in assets that have higher upside with no cash flow, right? Precious metals would be an example of an appreciation-based investment. You want to go buy a bar of gold because you think it's a good investment. It's not going to do anything for you today, tomorrow, the next day. But when you sell it, assuming it's accumulated some value, you'll see the windfall from that. I put in parentheses, and for me, I like both, right? There are ways to get both. And so in this case, real estate can offer that, right? If it's rental real estate, I can generate some cash flow on the rental side. And hopefully, depending on the market conditions, when I sell it, I can realize some appreciation on the sale. Promissory notes. A lot of people think that loans are completely cash flow only. And I would actually suggest that you can get both cash flow and appreciation out of a loan. I've seen and done loans that are interest-based that also have an equity kicker. So there is cash flow coming in each month. It may be a little bit lower, but when that project pays off, there may be opportunity to participate in the deal itself. So the beauty of self-direction is you have that opportunity to structure these deals however you see fit. So if you're looking for cash flow, if you're looking for appreciation, you're looking for both, self-direction gives you that opportunity. But you got to ask yourself, is that what I'm most interested in? Because before you think about asset classes, you should answer these questions first. And then lastly, short-term versus long-term. The nice thing in an IRA, there's no penalty to be short-term or long-term. With our personal money, we like to think long-term, right? 12 months in a day because we get preferential tax treatment. But what's awesome about an IRA is I don't have to make a decision around short-term or long-term from a tax perspective. I can buy an investment today, sell it tomorrow, and pay no tax in my IRA. I can buy the same investment, sell it a year and a day later, and pay no tax. So I can buy and sell when it makes sense, not when the tax liability suggests I should sell. But something to ask yourself is, do I want investments that turn more frequently, or am I looking for a set it and forget it? Do I want to be in something that's going to be 5, 7, 10 years long? There's no wrong answer, but you need to make that decision, because when you start looking at different asset classes, you may not even look at asset classes because they may not match this criteria. So we encourage people to really ask those questions. Second thing to look at is due diligence, right? Now, it's pretty clear, as you can see right there, NewView does not perform due diligence on your behalf. That is not the role we serve. We are a self-directed IRA custodian. That means we hold assets on behalf of the plan. We do the record keeping and reporting, and we're transactional in nature based on the activities of those assets. But as far as due diligence goes, that is not a role or responsibility we perform. And candidly, it isn't even one that we could if we wanted to. Our clients are buying such a unique series of assets. To give you perspective, we have over 16,000 unique investments on our platform. So our clients are out engaging in a variety of investments. We wouldn't even know where to begin from a due diligence standpoint. So first thing is make sure that you're doing due diligence. Some ways to do that. Number one, right? Seek out input from knowledgeable parties. So what does that mean? Well, if I'm going to go buy real estate, I want to find knowledgeable parties that I can talk to. So a local realtor would be a great resource for me. Maybe someone on the lending side, a banker that deals with real estate would be a great resource for me. A title company, a real estate attorney, right? These are another real estate investor, maybe someone more seasoned. But seek that knowledge out. You don't know what you don't know, and you got to surround yourself with people that can help you determine that. One of the things that I always like to talk to people about is always start with worst case scenario, right? When you start doing due diligence. So many people say, "Oh man, I can go buy that I can go buy that house and I can make like 10% every year." And I think to myself, awesome. You know, I'm not invested in that personally, but okay, you can make 10%, but let me ask a question. What happens if something goes wrong? What's worst case scenario look like? Because if worst case scenario means you could lose all your money and your maximum upside is 10%, I would say that's not a risk-adjusted return, right? Why would I take the risk of losing everything to make 10%? Now, would I take the risk of losing everything to make 40%, 30%, 50%? Right? Everybody has a number, but you need to know what that is. So to me, I like to look at the worst case scenario. What happens if things don't work out the way we intended? Because they do inevitably and can and will go wrong. You could make 20 investments and never have an issue. You could make 20 investments and have an issue with all 20. That's why it's investing. right? Anyone that's ever told you they made they're an investor and they've never lost money or never had a problem, probably they're misrepresenting the truth a little bit, because it will happen. So what you have to do is protect the downside. So make sure you're understanding from a due diligence standpoint, what does worst case scenario look like? If worst case scenario is a 20% loss and I've got upside at 10%, now I feel comfortable because that's a risk adjusted return. But if downside is 40, 50% loss, then I need that upside to be higher, or I got to find a different investment that fits my risk tolerance a little bit better. Too good to be true a lot of times is exactly that. I can't tell you how many times I've seen clients that have called and said, this is the world's greatest investment, and and we're not here to tell them it's good or bad, and at the end of the day, we don't know. But when most cases, when investments do run amok, when they do go bad, especially when there's fraud related to them, in almost all cases, they started out with some sort of too good to be true. And then the last thing is Google is your best friend. It amazes me, right? You sit at a dinner party and we Google, who hit the most home runs in 2012, or we Google, where we want to travel, or whatever it is. And we use this as this powerful engine of information. Yet when it comes to making investments, we don't use it nearly enough. So here's how I recommend people use Google. If you're going to invest with someone else, another party, Google their name, Google their background. If they tell you they've been investment for X number of years, Google it, right? The internet will get you close. It isn't the most factual all the time, but you would be amazed how much information is there. I can tell you stories of clients that have asked for due diligence tips, and we say, hey, we're not here to do due diligence, but here's a couple things that you can do. Have you gone to Google? Have you done this? Have you done that? And they've called back and said, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that. I Googled, Bill Smith, the guy that I was going to loan money to, and there was 3 stories of fraud or whatever that popped up. There's lots of information out there. Weed through it, make sure you got the right information and you're making decisions on the right information. But do your due diligence and use Google. And then surround yourself with opportunities. This is probably the best part of my job, because I find a lot of my investment opportunities when I'm out talking to potential clients and current clients about self-direction in general. And they tell me stuff that they're doing, and they tell me this deal, and they tell me that deal. And what I love is, from a personal standpoint, I get to hear it all and say, that sounds awesome. You're way smarter than I am. How do I do some of that? Right? Surround yourself with professionals. How do you do that? Right? Investor clubs, associations. If there's, no matter where you reside, I'm sure there's a real estate association. There's probably a private note group, maybe a little bit more broad. There's stuff on precious metals. If you can't find it locally, find it on the internet in online forums. Meetups, go on to Meetup and look and see if there are groups, and do people meet? We have clients that thousands of clients throughout the U.S. that are part of these different meetup groups sharing ideas. If you've not been to any one of our events, our client networking events, we just had 200 people attend last month. Here locally in Orlando. We have our big event coming up, Planning for Prosperity. We'll have a couple hundred clients and guests and friends that are all here learning about how to use a self-directed account in the most efficient manner and what opportunities lie ahead. So take full advantage of that. Excuse me. I'm going to open up a question here, so excuse me for a second. It says, if I make an investment with the IRA funds in NewView, when I receive the interest payments back into my account, can I diversify or use to create a Roth account? So I'm going to shrink this, because I'm actually going to go to the, we're going to get to that part here in just a minute, and I'm going to cover that in better detail. Requesting your investment. So you've identified it, right? You figured out, where do I want to invest? What are the reasons I want to invest? What's my investment strategy, risk tolerance, etc. And now you've found the investment. Now you've got to request that through NewView. We're the ones that are going to go make that happen on your behalf. So here's the process. Number one, know what you're going to buy. Now that may seem like a very, profound statement, right? But understand that we only know what you tell us up front. We run into this a lot. So we run into it where a client will call and say, I'm going to go invest into this real estate deal, et cetera, and it's a piece of real estate. And so we provide them or instruct them or point them to the real estate forms, only to find out their IRA is not actually going to own real estate. their IRA is investing into an LLC that's ultimately going to own real estate. And so from that standpoint, the IRA's investment is not real estate, it's an LLC, and it's slightly different paperwork. So we don't want to have false starts. So if you're, make sure that you're sharing with us exactly what you intend to do, and if you're utilizing entities or structures or anything, make sure you share that information so we can point you to the right direction. Submit your request. So how do you do that? So every single purchase requires what we call a purchase authorization. That is a form, it's a plug-in form that basically says, tell us the details of what you want to buy and sign saying you're allowing us to go buy this inside your IRA. It is the equivalent of when you click I agree to buy a security, all the stuff that's there, right? It's the same equivalent. You can download those right off our website, newviewtrust.com/forms. You'll see all the different investment types. You can fill them out, you can drop them off, you can mail, fax them, or email them to us. However, we recommend go right into your online portal. Once you're a client, that My New View portal is the best resource for you as far as online management and activity. You can go on and make purchase requests right there. You can also electronically sign the documents and upload all of the paperwork right into that system. So it's by far the most secure and most efficient way to do it. And then once you do that, stand by to be able to authorize third-party documents. So if you're buying a piece of real estate and you say, New View, here's the contract and here's the authorization form to go buy 123 Main Street, when all those closing docs are generated, before New View will simply sign them and wire the money, we're going to ask you to review them and authorize them electronically for us, because we want to make sure that this is exactly what you want to do. And we run into issues where we try to get a hold of a client and they're not available for 3 days, and that will slow the process down. We want these things to move quickly and efficiently. So, we always recommend when you make that investment, stay on standby. Our average transaction time is 24 to 48 hours from the time we get the paperwork. It's fast, but what slows it down is when we're working with third parties or we're waiting on documents to come back or documents come in incomplete. That will slow the process down. So we can make investments as early as next day, right? Once we have everything we need. But just stay on standby. We don't know what the title company is going to do, change, modify, adjust. So we want to make sure that you're prepared to acknowledge those as needed. So this is where I'll take us into our last slide, and we'll talk a little bit about the question that was asked. So this has to do with maintaining your asset and account. Now, those two things are separate, but they fall under the same umbrella. When we say asset, that means your investments. When we say account, that means really your account details, not related to any one particular investment. So the first one is ensure your income is coming into New View. So if they're mailing it to you, it needs to be forwarded to us. We recommend that it's sent directly from whomever it is writing that check to your IRA or sending an ACH or a wire directly to us, right? We can accept checks, ACHs, and wires. And then we encourage we require a deposit code. And we require this because we get thousands of checks. And you may have a borrower that writes a check simply made out to New View. So we don't have a way of knowing what it belongs to because the borrower isn't the account holder. So we use the deposit code to ensure the most accurate and timely deposit into your account. Notify New View of any expense payments. So if you own a piece of real estate, if there are bills to pay, we can set those up under a recurring model. So if we need to pay every single month, we need to pay your HOA, we'll set that up in an automated manner. You don't have to go through that process each time. But we need to know that's your responsibility to tell us what needs to be paid right up front. But if there are one-off expenses, make sure that we're aware of those. So if you're going to have a plumber go out and do some work, that invoice needs to come to us and we need your authorization to pay it. You can do that right through the New View portal and it doesn't cost you anything. If you do it the old-fashioned way by sending it to us via email and having us manually process it, we charge $5 for that. Ensure your asset is performing to your desire. So, that may seem, may go without saying, but you need to be evaluating your investments and you need to be monitoring them. So if you have a loan and you're supposed to be getting a monthly payment every month, make sure that you're getting your monthly payment. You don't want to wait 12 months to look at your account to realize you haven't gotten money. Or if you've invested into a private company and they're supposed to issue a dividend, or you've got real estate and your property manager is supposed to send a report. We don't know any of that. We're only custodians. So we want to make sure you understand your responsibility to make sure that they're performing the way that you want them to. And that shouldn't be done once a year, right? It probably doesn't need to be done every day, but the truth lies somewhere in the middle depending on the asset classes you've chosen to invest into. Um, Provide an annual fair market value. This is your responsibility. This is a good faith estimate of the market value of that asset. We do not require an appraiser. We don't require you to go out and hire some third party to go do it. You can if you want. If you want the peace of mind of knowing exactly where this thing is performing, that's your choice. A broker opinion letter on real estate will work. The county appraiser's website will work. On a private company, the CFO of the company can acknowledge what that market value of that asset is worth. But know that it's your responsibility to update that. The IRS requires it, and we ask for those between January and March, and we're asking for 1231's value. So be prepared for that. It shouldn't be a surprise when we notify you that we need it, and it shouldn't be a surprise if we continue to notify you until we get it. And then keep your account information up to date. I can't stress this enough. This happens unfortunately all too often. People don't change stuff. We don't know that you moved. We don't know that you had a life event, got divorced, got married, had a child. None of that stuff. We don't know that. And if you don't modify your account paperwork, it's going to operate off of the last thing you signed. There are lots of stories of this. So whether it be marriage or divorce, from a beneficiary standpoint, that's really important. We have seen money that has gone to an ex-spouse because someone didn't update their beneficiary form years after their divorce. So please, please pay close attention to that so that you can't make decisions when you're not here to make them. So that form will supersede any other thing you have. So just because you think you have a will or you have it written down somewhere else, if that the beneficiary form on your IRA here says 100% of the money goes to party A, it's going to go to party A. And that's really important that you make sure that you're managing that effectively. Contact information. If you're moving, if things are, let us know. We've had clients that have gotten frustrated because they didn't get their statement. Well, come to find out, they moved and never updated their address information. So make sure that that you're keeping us up to date, just like you would on any other financial account. And then lastly, interested parties. If you're going to give access to your account to someone, make sure if there's a life event that you remove that access. And if you're giving them access that provides them signature authority like power of attorney, you want to make sure you guard that incredibly close. So those are just some things to be aware of. I'm going to pull up that original question, and it looks like we've got another one that's popped in, and we'll get us wrapped up here. So the first question is, if I make an investment with the IRA funds in NewView, when I receive the interest payments back to my account, can I diversify or use it to create a Roth? So the first part of that is absolutely. So as that money comes in, so let's just call it $1,000 a month, whether it's rent, whether it's dividend, whether it's mortgage payment, it doesn't matter. As that comes in and accumulates, you can in turn go buy other investments. So you can invest into anything else that you want. And that's the beauty of self-direction. As far as diversifying that to a Roth or moving that to a Roth, you certainly can do that as well. If it's in a pre-tax account, it would be a Roth conversion, and we do have clients that do this. So we get the $1,000 in, and we have a standing authorization to convert that $1,000 to the Roth. And then the next one comes in, and we convert that to the Roth. And they do that little by little as they receive income. So that is certainly an option. Thank you very much for that question. Do real estate assets need to be income producing, or can it be a second residence? So the answer to the first part is, does it need to be income producing, is no. You can buy real estate that's just for appreciation or speculative. So we have clients that buy raw land, or we have clients that even buy a house, but they choose not to rent it. They're just waiting for it to appreciate, and they plan to liquidate it. Either of those options are fine. Unfortunately, can it be a second residence? The answer to that is also no. You cannot, per the IRS rules, use, live in, or occupy any IRA-owned asset. So if your IRA owns a beach condo on the beach, or beach condo, it can rent it out, but you can't go use it. Most of your family members are prohibited from using it. And the IRS wants to keep you from using your IRA to simply buy something that's not a true investment, but partial investment, partial use. It has to be strictly for investment purposes, bought, sold, and rented to unrelated parties. So unfortunately, a second residence cannot be held inside an IRA. Another question has come in, and it says, what are the fees to operate the IRA? I'll give general fees. You can go online. This isn't a presentation about fees. You can go online and take a look at that. We charge, the way our fees work is we have a $95 transactional fee. That's one time. So when we buy or sell an investment on your behalf, it's $95. So if we go buy that house, we charge $95. That includes us working with the title company, getting all the documents, getting your documents, putting it into the system, getting your client approval on it, and we do all of that for only $95. Annually, you have two ways you can pay your account fee. You can pay based on the value of your account. So there's a table right on our website that just you put in the value of your account, it'll spit out a fee. Right? The second option is you can choose to pay a flat fee of $295 for each asset that you hold. The reason we have two is we don't want you to have to pay based on what we think makes sense. You get to pay based on what you think makes sense. So if you have $1 million IRA, if you go to most companies that charge you on value only, you're going to have a significant fee. In ours, we don't charge you on the million if you choose to pay based on the assets you hold. So if you hold one house or two houses, you're going to pay $600 or less. When you compare that to what you would pay on the value of it's fraction of a percentage. So it's incredibly inexpensive. But on the same token, if you have an IRA that has, say, $50,000 in it, but you're going to go buy three $15,000 pieces of raw land, well, you wouldn't want to pay $295, right? That would be expensive compared to the balance of the account. So in turn, you could take your $50,000, plug it in, right? And you'd probably pay $200, $250 as a fee instead of $295 times 3. So you can get the rest of the fee information right on our website, but I did want to at least address that piece of it. I don't see any other questions that have come in. We've run about 5 minutes over today, but I really appreciate those questions that you guys asked. Hopefully you feel like now you have a good understanding of the procedural side. We sometimes get so excitable about the idea of using an IRA to buy something unique that we really forget to stop and talk about the processes. So we want you guys to engage NewView in the best way possible, and we want to be engaged in a manner that allows us to provide the most efficient administration of your self-directed account. So we thank you for the opportunity to serve you. Thank you guys very much for joining us today. And we look forward to having you join us for additional future webinars. Thank you.